Welcome to Global Focus. Tonight, we bring you a deep dive into one of the most closely watched developments on the international stage, India and the United States seeking a breakthrough in day-long trade talks. After years of negotiations marked by both cooperation and contention, officials from New Delhi and Washington have gathered once again, with the hope of resolving disputes that have hindered commerce between the world's largest democracy and the world's largest economy. Good evening, I'm your host, and over the next 50 minutes we'll examine not only what happened today, but also why it matters to businesses, consumers, and governments across the globe. We'll take you through the historical background, the sticking points, the strategies, and the possible outcomes. We'll also hear from analysts and industry experts to understand what this could mean for the future of global trade. Let's begin with the basics. Today's meeting was not just another round of diplomacy. It was a concentrated, marathon negotiation lasting nearly 12 hours, involving high-level delegations from both sides. The American team was led by the U.S. Trade Representative, while India's delegation included top Commerce Ministry officials. Their agenda covered everything from tariffs on agricultural products to market access for technology firms, from intellectual property protections to cooperation on digital trade. At stake is not only the balance of trade between the two countries but also the broader shape of their strategic partnership in a world increasingly defined by economic competition. To understand why these talks are so significant, we need to rewind. The US and India have had a complicated trade relationship. While the two countries share democratic values and increasingly common security interests, their economic ties have often been marked by disputes. The US has criticized India for what it calls protectionist policies, high tariffs on goods such as dairy, medical devices, and information technology products. India, on the other hand, has accused the US of unfair trade practices, including restrictions on its skilled workers under the H-1B visa program, and high duties on products like steel and aluminum. Trade volume between the two countries has grown steadily, reaching over $190 billion annually. Yet, there remains a trade imbalance. India exports more to the US than it imports. American companies want easier access to India's huge consumer market, while Indian firms want fairer treatment in US immigration and services policies. For years, negotiators have been trying to bridge this divide. In recent years, tensions escalated when the US withdrew India's preferential trade status under the Generalized System of Preferences. That move affected billions of dollars worth of Indian exports, particularly in the textiles and manufacturing sectors. India retaliated with tariffs on American goods such as almonds, apples, and walnuts, hitting US farmers directly. This tit-for-tat created frustration on both sides, and businesses called for a reset. Fast forward to today, both governments realize that with geopolitical shifts, particularly China's growing influence in Asia and beyond, they cannot afford to let economic disagreements overshadow strategic cooperation. Washington sees India as a vital partner in its Indo-Pacific strategy. New Delhi sees closer U.S. trade ties as essential for fueling its own economic growth and securing supply chains. That's why today's marathon talks were billed as an opportunity for a fresh start. Now let's bring in our correspondent from Washington, who has been following these negotiations closely. Paz as correspondent appears. She explains that while officials remain cautious, both sides signaled progress. Reports suggest that agreements may be within reach on lowering tariffs in some sectors, opening up India's market for U.S. agricultural products, and enhancing cooperation on digital trade rules. However, disagreements remain, particularly on intellectual property rights and pharmaceutical regulations. India wants flexibility to produce affordable generic medicines, while the U.S. insists on stronger protections for American drug makers. Back to the studio. These sticking points highlight the complexity of the talks. It's not just about economics, it's about politics and public opinion. For Indian leaders, making concessions could be seen domestically as bowing to American pressure. For U.S. leaders, failing to secure meaningful access for American companies could draw criticism at home. Both governments are balancing international diplomacy with domestic politics. Let's take a closer look at the economic impact. American farmers have been pushing hard for India to lower tariffs on products like almonds, dairy, and poultry. If these barriers are reduced, it could open a massive market for U.S. agriculture. On the flip side, Indian IT firms are lobbying Washington to ease restrictions on skilled worker visas. Those firms provide crucial services to American companies, but recent U.S. immigration rules have made it harder for Indian professionals to work in the United States. Resolving this issue could significantly strengthen the services trade. For ordinary consumers, these talks could affect everything from the price of smartphones to the availability of cheaper medicines. For businesses, it could mean new opportunities and fewer bureaucratic hurdles. For governments, it could redefine one of the most important bilateral relationships in the world. Now, let's broaden the discussion. How does this fit into the global picture? The US is engaged in multiple trade disputes, from Europe to East Asia. India, too, has been recalibrating its trade strategy after walking away from the regional comprehensive economic partnership with China and other Asian economies. Both countries are aware that strong trade ties between them could counterbalance China's economic dominance. That's why today's talks are being watched not just in Washington and New Delhi but also in Beijing, Brussels, and Tokyo. Joining us now is an international trade expert. Pause for guest segment. He points out that trade deals are rarely about quick wins. They are about building trust and creating long-term frameworks. He explains that even partial agreements today could pave the way for broader deals tomorrow. He also notes that global supply chain disruptions, from the pandemic to geopolitical conflicts, make it imperative for India and the US to work more closely together. But there are skeptics. Some analysts argue that the differences are simply too deep. They point to India's reluctance to fully open its markets, and to America's unwillingness to bend on intellectual property rights. Without compromises, the talks could end in another stalemate. Businesses would be left waiting, and opportunities would be lost. Still, there's reason for optimism. Both sides know that the cost of failure is high. They also know that success would send a powerful message, that democracies can work together to strengthen not only their own economies but also the global trading system. Over the next few weeks, technical teams will continue to refine the details. Officials say they hope to announce concrete progress soon. Whether it's a full-fledged deal or a limited agreement covering specific sectors, today's meeting marks a crucial step forward. As we near the end of our program, let's consider what's at stake in plain terms. For the US, this is about securing markets for its farmers, tech firms, and manufacturers. For India, this is about attracting investment, creating jobs, and maintaining access to the world's largest consumer economy. For the world, this is about proving that amid rising protectionism, cooperation is still possible. The day-long talks may not have solved every problem, but they represent renewed commitment. They show that despite differences, India and the US are determined to find common ground. In a world where economic rivalries often fuel conflict, this pursuit of compromise could be a model for others. And so, as we wrap up tonight's special coverage, the story is still unfolding. We will continue to track developments, bringing you the latest as both sides move from negotiation tables to potential agreements. One thing is clear, the outcome of these talks will shape not only the future of US-India relations but also the balance of global trade in the years ahead. Thank you for joining us. Stay with us for more updates after the break.